Hey everyone. So, this week, what I wanted to talk about is research. Now, as a photographer, there's probably several things that you've done research on. For example, you may research a particular lighting technique, or you might be interested in using LED lights. So, you look up what you can find about how they're used and anything special about them. Also, you may also look at your competitors, right? You want to go see what it is that they've done for their websites, for example, to see if you want to make a website similar to what they're doing. But the type of research I want to talk about today is research done to give yourself ideas of what's popular and to think about what ways you could come up with something new and creative, either based off of what you see or based off the fact that you don't see this idea that you have in your head. Now, where would you do this kind of research? Well, if you're doing research on your photographers, right, you may look for your photographers in your area. If you're looking at just to see what they're doing for a competition view of their work. But if you're going to look for the styles that are used, you're probably going to widen your scope. But let's look at something specific. Now, as you know, I take pictures at Fort Ticonderoga. So, what would you want to know before you take pictures at an event such as this? And what do you want to see about what is shared of these events? So, we're going to start off with Pinterest and we're going to look at reenactors. Now, you'll notice one interesting thing here. They've got 18th century reenactors. They don't have anything specifically for the Revolutionary War, but let's go to the 18th century one. And these look in part like what you'll see at Fort Ticonderoga. And when I say in part, we're talking more like that. This, the uniforms, obviously, but not too much of this type of image. And there's a very good reason why you're not going to see these fancier dresses. The women and possibly children that traveled with the military at the time, A, would not have a lot of money, but B, would be wearing things that were more functional than they were, shall we say, frilly. They're not going to be carrying umbrellas. They are going to be wearing things that are designed to keep them warm and allow them to do the tasks that they want to do. And what you'll notice in these pictures is there's some things that are just that stand out to you. This one, for example, I find interesting for the simple fact that that's Fort Ticonderoga in the background, as far as I could tell. That looks like the corner of the fort would be over here, and that's the lake with the cannon mounted. Unfortunately, it doesn't say much about this, but this is a good example of what I could expect when I go to take pictures at the fort. Is this type of outfit. And so you can look at something like this to come up with an idea of what you're going to be looking at, and then ideas of what um, the outfits look like, as well as how they're worn and posed. So what we're doing here is we're looking at the way the pictures are taken to get an idea for what's traditionally done. And things are done a little bit differently when you're talking about events like what's at Fort Ticonderoga. There will be times when you can get a posed image, but most of the images what you're going to get is something more along the lines of action. Something is going to be happening, and you're going to capture that activity. Seeing a lot of things here either from Fort Ticonderoga or very similar to what you would see at Fort Ticonderoga. But this is Pinterest. So what you've got here is what people pinned that they found interesting. So from the perspective of this type of site, this will give you an idea of the way people are typically posed. But we want to go beyond that. Let's look at what a reenactor posts of themselves. This will give you an idea from the reenactor's standpoint of what is important to them when they do this kind of work. A lot of portrait stuff, a lot of him showing off his accoutrements of what he's wearing or the accessories that he carries. And that was done just by coming here and doing a reenactor. Typing blind, can't see my keyboard while I do this. Type of set. So we've got things like the reenactor program, the reenactor spot. Let's go look at the reenactor spot. And look, American Revolution and World War II reenactor. Going to be American Revolution is what I'm looking at. And he goes to Fort Ticonderoga. This is the area outside the garden at the fort. But you can see these are the types of things that he feels is important that means something to him as a reenactor. And one thing I want to do when I capture these photographs is not only come up with something that the fort will find valuable and useful in promoting their activities, but I also want to capture things that will make sense from the reenactor's standpoint, that will show the reenactors' view of the work that they're doing, which means, as you can see from a lot of these, a lot of action shots, right? Tons and tons and tons of things going on. Even though this is an encampment here, you'll notice that there's activity going on. So when you think about getting your photographs, when you think about getting more education about what it is that you're going to be doing. I want you to remember that it's important to check on your competition. From a marketing standpoint, that's essential so that you know what your fellow photographers are offering and how they're offering their services. It's also a good idea to see what they're posting for their photographs, because it's possible that what they're posting is things that the client really liked, not necessarily what the photographer liked of the series as much as what the client liked of the series. Now, that's not always going to be the case, and there's no way to really know that. But if you assume that the client is the person who chose the photograph that's going on the site, then that gives you the perspective of the client. And the reason I think that's a good assumption is every photographer should have a contract. And in that contract with their client would be a clause that allows them to use photographs from the session. I'm of the camp that those contracts should be very, very specific and say what the photograph is that's going to be used. I also think that the contract should specify the ways it will and will not be used. For example, you're not going to use that photograph in a generative AI scenario where you might be taking the face of the person that you took and putting them on something else. So looking at fellow photographers' sites will give you an idea of what the clients liked about the posing. Going to Instagram will give you an idea of what was important directly from the person that they chose to share it. Just like looking at these reenactor photos, this is what the reenactor wants to share about their, I want to say world, but it's kind of goes beyond that. It is something that's very important to them. And something, yep, another for Ticonderoga, I was right. Something that they're wanting to share with the world. From that perspective, this gives you a look into what types of things would be important if you're going to be shooting, in this case, an event. But if you're looking at somebody who only takes selfies or only posts selfies and they want something more than that, you can look at the types of photographs that they normally take and either pattern something similar to it or show them what they could do beyond that. And then, of course, you've got what's popular. Pinterest, guru shots, for example, or any of those sharing sites where photographers are sharing photographs would also give you another idea of what's being taken. And you can get ideas looking at the posing and things. For example, while I think this is well posed, personally, I would want to back it off a little bit more and get more of the horse. So when you see a photograph, look at what you like about the photograph and what you don't like about the photograph. So while it's important to know what it is that you're going to concentrate on, in this case, He's got the period outfit on. He's also eating with period utensils. So that would be something that you'd want to capture. But at the same time, you want to see what you like about the photograph and what you might want to do differently if you were to shoot that photograph. For example, there's a whole set of events for Fort Ticonderoga there. There's another one down here. This is them lining up the back wall of the fort here. Over in this area would be the arch entryway into the interior of the fort. These would be barracks of the officers in here. If you've seen the image of Ethan Allen getting the surrender of the British officer at Fort Ticonderoga, that would have been over here. So looking at all of these images will help you not only understand what's important to the person that you're taking the picture of, so that you can give them something that they'll want to have and something they'll cherish. But it also allows you to come up with new things, new ways of looking at what you're going to do, and potentially coming up with new ways that you can take that photograph, especially if you critique them. And I'm not talking about critiquing a photograph because you go on the site and then say, well, I would have done this differently. It's got nothing to do with that. What you're trying to do is, in your own mind, what do you, as a photographer, like or don't like when you see these photographs? Do they look to your eye to be too posed? Do you want there to be more action in it? Do you want it to be more of a document of their life and not just a portrait photograph? By going out and doing the research, which will take time, but it'll pay off both in dividends for the person you took the picture of, as well as yourself and your growth as a photographer. So that's what I got for you guys this week, and I will talk to you all next time.